You believe you're making choices. You believe your thoughts are yours. You believe you're living your own life. But what if you're not? What if, long before you could speak, you were already being programmed by your parents, by your culture, by your pain, by your fear? Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. You are not as free as you think, because what you call you is a construction, an inherited pattern, a carefully assembled system of adaptations, beliefs, and protections, some of which kept you safe, and some which are now keeping you small. You were trained to be agreeable, to follow rules, to prioritize belonging over truth, to seek approval instead of self-knowledge, to repress the parts of yourself that others rejected. That's not freedom. That's conditioning. You think you chose your career, your relationships, your values. But what if your unconscious chose first? What if you're not in control, but simply reacting to trauma, to expectation, to fear of rejection, to unresolved wounds buried so deep you mistake them for your personality? This is the terrifying insight of Jung's work. Most people are not living, they're reenacting, not choosing, just repeating, not free, simply unaware. You didn't choose the emotional language your nervous system speaks. You didn't choose your defense mechanisms. You didn't choose the story your ego tells itself to feel safe. And until you see that, you'll keep calling your programming destiny. That's the first fracture, the first awakening, when the you thought you were begins to crack, and something deeper starts to rise, something ancient, buried, waiting. This is not about shame. This is not about blame. This is about reclaiming the only thing that ever truly belonged to you, your awareness. Because the moment you bring the unconscious to light, the moment you pause the autopilot, the moment you ask, is this really me, or just a pattern I inherited? Everything begins to shift. You don't need to burn your life down. You just need to look deeper. You need to listen to the voice beneath the roles, the silence beneath the noise, the self beneath the ego. That's where the real you has always been. Not performing, not pretending, not perfect, but waiting. And if you're brave enough to go there, you won't just wake up. You'll finally take your life back. Imagine waking up one day and realizing you've lived your entire life inside a house you didn't build. A house where every room was designed by someone else. Your parents, your teachers, your culture, your experiences. You didn't choose the walls, the furniture, the colors, the rules. And yet, you made yourself comfortable. You learned where to walk, where to sit, how to behave. You memorized its structure so well that you forgot it was ever built at all. This is your unconscious mind. Carl Jung didn't see the unconscious as just a storage space for forgotten thoughts or repressed memories. He saw it as a living structure, a deep, internal architecture shaped by instincts, archetypes, and unintegrated fragments of self. You think your life is built from conscious decisions, but the unconscious lays a foundation. And here's the problem. Most people never enter this house. They live in the foyer, in the personality they project, in the stories they've been told, in the mask. They don't see the hallways of ancestral trauma, the basement of repressed pain, the locked rooms full of rejected selves. But these rooms exist, and they influence everything. Jung described the unconscious not as a passive container, but as an active force. It dreams. It imagines. It compensates. It balances what you consciously deny. If you obsessively control your image, the unconscious will express your chaos in dreams, compulsions, or breakdowns. If you repress anger, it will show up as anxiety, sarcasm, or illness. If you deny sadness, the unconscious might numb you until life feels flat. What you reject consciously returns unconsciously, but distorted. That's why so many people feel stuck. They are fighting symptoms instead of exploring structures. You cannot heal what you have not met. According to Jung, the psyche is layered. 1. The persona, the mask you wear to fit in. 2. The ego, your conscious self. 3. The personal unconscious, your unique forgotten memories and suppressed experiences. 4. The shadow, what you deny, dislike, or disown in yourself. 5. The animus/animus, your inner feminine or masculine. 6. The collective unconscious, humanity's shared symbolic memory. Each is a room in your inner house. Some are lit, others locked, but all of them are you. Most people fear the shadow. They assume it's evil or shameful. But Jung said the shadow is 90% gold. It holds your passion, your power, your creativity. It only becomes dangerous when ignored. Then it festers, sabotages projects. If you don't face your shadow, you project it. You call others toxic while avoiding your own patterns. You see selfishness where there's freedom. You hate arrogance because you've silenced your boldness. Projection is the shadow's favorite game. Jung placed enormous value on dreams. They are the language of the unconscious, not literal, but symbolic, not random, but purposeful. Dreams compensate for what your waking mind avoids. They speak in symbols. They whisper what you've silenced. To decode a dream is to read the blueprint of your inner house. Jung introduced the idea of synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that connect inner and outer worlds. You think of someone and they call. You see the same symbol repeatedly. You meet the right person at the exact right time. These are not coincidences. They are the unconscious speaking through reality. Because the walls of the house are not solid, the unconscious leaks. Archetypes are recurring symbolic patterns across myths, stories, and lives. The hero, the orphan, the mother, the sage, the trickster. You meet these archetypes in others, but they also live in you. Recognizing them gives meaning to your struggle. It turns confusion into narrative. You realize this isn't chaos. It's myth, and you are the storyteller. To individuate is not to be perfect. It's to be whole. It means exploring the attic of memory, clearing the basement of pain, opening the windows of belief, letting light into long, dark places. It's painful, uncomfortable, but freeing, because once you know the house, you're no longer lost in it. There is nothing wrong with you. You are not too much. You are not enough. You are simply a psyche in pieces. And every trigger, struggle, or symptom isn't a flaw. It's a message, a call to explore the rooms you've been avoiding. Your healing doesn't happen on the surface. It happens in the shadows, in the silence, in the house no one taught you how to enter. But Jung did. He gave us the map. He named the layers. He opened the door. Now the question is, will you step inside? There's a strange phenomenon buried deep in the psyche. We repeat what hurts us, not because we enjoy pain, not because we're unaware, but because something unconscious is pulling the strings. This is what Carl Jung warned of when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." You think you're moving forward, but look closely. Your relationships are echoes. Your emotional wounds are familiar. Your struggles feel scripted, as if the same cycle keeps finding you, in new disguises. Why? Because your unresolved past isn't behind you. It's living inside you, and it's quietly rebuilding your future in its own image. Every unprocessed experience lives in your nervous system like a ghost. It doesn't forget. It doesn't rest. It waits. And the longer it waits, the more it shapes your life. You attract the same emotional dynamics in different people. You sabotage success at the moment it arrives. You create environments that recreate childhood pain. You feel stuck in emotional patterns that never seem to break. These aren't coincidences. They're patterns. We don't repeat because we're broken. We repeat because we're unfinished. Jung believed that the psyche seeks integration. It wants to be whole, and it will do whatever it must to bring the unconscious into light, even if that means repeating trauma until you finally pay attention. This is called repetition compulsion. The unconscious drive to recreate painful experiences in hopes of resolving them. You are not addicted to the pain. You're addicted to the possibility of healing it. That's why people stay in toxic relationships, return to destructive habits, fight for the approval of those who will never give it. It's not weakness. It's the psyche pleading. Can we get right this time? But healing doesn't come from reliving the wound. It comes from recognizing it. You were born into a story. Long before language, you absorbed emotion. Long before identity, you were shaped by reaction. You learned, what love requires, which emotions are safe, what parts of you should be hidden. From this, you formed a strategy to survive, to belong, to stay loved. But that strategy became your prison. You became the caretaker, the achiever, the avoider. Now, decades later, you're still playing that role, even though the stage has changed. Your unconscious keeps writing scenes that match the original script. And so, over and over, you live not from freedom, but from a wound that still wants to be heard. Jung described projection as a process where you see your unconscious in others. You think, someone is judging you, it's your inner critic. Someone will abandon you, it's your own fear of being unworthy. Someone's confidence annoys you, it reflects a disowned part of you. You're not reacting to the world. You're reacting to an old version of you that didn't get what it needed. Your emotional reality is often not about now. It's about then. At the center of repetition compulsion is the wounded inner child, the child who was overlooked, controlled, abandoned, invalidated. That child didn't disappear. They adapted. They put on grown-up clothes and learned to function. But emotionally, they're still driving. So you unconsciously choose people who abandon you, situations that devalue you, paths that prove your pain was real. You think it's bad luck. It's not. It's unfinished business, resurfacing for resolution. You move cities, change jobs, leave relationships. But months later, the same emotions resurface. Emptiness, anxiety, disconnection. Why? Because you change the scenery, not the script. Until you face the original wound, your psyche will recreate it, hoping you'll finally see it. Freedom isn't more money, more love, more success. Freedom is the moment you say, "This ends with me," and then you pause. You breathe. You choose differently. You sit with the discomfort instead of escaping. You set boundaries where you used to seek validation. You stop running and start listening. That's where real power begins. The moment you become aware of the pattern, it begins to lose its grip. The triggers become teachers. The reactions become messages. The repetition becomes the roadmap. This is what Jung meant when he said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." You don't become free by avoiding your past. You become free by owning it. Your trauma is not your identity. Your pain is not your fate. Your repetition is not your destiny. These are messages, and you are the interpreter. Healing begins when you stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to show me?" Because every cycle you break doesn't just change your life. It changes the lives of everyone who comes after you. Who are you when no one is watching? What part of you smiles when your soul is silent? What would remain if every role you play was stripped away? These are not casual questions. They are spiritual detonators. Because behind them lies a terrifying possibility that much of who you think you are is not truly you. Carl Jung warned that the self we present to the world, our persona, is not the full self. It's a carefully constructed mask, a negotiation between who we are and who the world allows us to be. And over time, we confuse the mask with the face. We forget it was ever optional. The persona isn't evil. It has a function. It's the version of you that navigates society. The part that smiles, complies, adapts. You act differently at work than with friends. You filter your emotions. You say what's expected to avoid rejection. That's persona. It's necessary, but it's not you. Problems arise when the persona becomes permanent, when the mask hardens into identity. When you forget that you ever had a choice, you become the achiever, the good girl, the strong one, the helper, the intellectual, the avoider. At first, it protects you, but then it imprisons you, because the persona is designed for acceptance, not authenticity. The ego is a part of you that says, "I am this." It's your story, your identity, your role. The ego isn't the villain. It gives structure, stability, continuity. But the ego doesn't like to be questioned. It's invested in its narrative. It clings to labels. I'm logical. I'm not emotional. I don't need help. I'm the strong one. But what if these labels aren't the truth? What are their defenses? The ego wants to be right. The self wants to be whole. Eventually, something happens. The relationship ends. The job collapses. The mask can't hold anymore. You feel lost, untethered, as if the ground beneath your personality is crumbling. This is not a breakdown. It's a breakthrough. You're not falling apart. You're falling into the shadow, into the parts you've ignored, into the self you've never met. It's terrifying, but it's sacred, because the truth is, the person you've been isn't the whole story. The real you isn't clean and composed. It's complex, contradictory, unapologetic. It contains rage and compassion, power and softness, logic and longing. You are not meant to be simple. You are meant to be true. Most people are exhausted not because they're broken, but because they're performing. They're smiling through shame, saying yes while dying inside, living for approval, not alignment. You cannot be whole while being half-truthful. You cannot be free while wearing armor. The self doesn't want performance. It wants permission. Every relationship is a mirror. It shows you what you love, what you fear, what you hide. That's why intimacy is so scary. Because real connection threatens a persona. It invites the shadow. It asks you to be seen. The ego resists. It whispers. Hide that part. Don't be too much. Be who they need. But the self whispers. Be all of you. You're already enough. Let them see. When you remove the mask, you don't die. You wake up. You remember who you were before you learn to be good. You reconnect with the you who was never broken, just buried. You stop trying to be lovable. You start being love. You don't need to destroy the ego. You don't need to abandon the persona. You just need to stop mistaking them for the truth. You are not the story. You are the storyteller. You are not the mirror. You are the light behind it. You are not the role. You are the presence playing it. And when you remember that, you don't just change. You become real. We like to believe that perception is objective, that what we see is what is, that reality is out there and we simply observe it. But Carl Jung shattered that illusion. He taught that we do not see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. Your mind is not a window. It's a mirror. And everything you call the world is partially a reflection of your own unconscious. This is a terrifying and liberating truth of projection. Jung defined rejection as the unconscious act of attributing your own thoughts, emotions, or disowned qualities to others. You don't just see what's there. You see what your psyche projects onto it. A stranger's silence becomes rejection. A colleague's success becomes a threat. A partner's autonomy becomes betrayal. Are they really those things? Or are you just seeing the parts of yourself you refuse to claim? What you disown in yourself doesn't disappear. It just hides. And what hides eventually seeks expression through others. You repress your anger. You see others as hostile. You deny your ambition. You resent others' success. You avoid your truth. You judge others' directness. This is a shadow at work. What you won't face within, you meet without. Your psyche wants to heal. And if you don't go inward, it will create situations outward. You attract people who push your buttons. You repeat emotional dynamics that feel familiar. You react to others as if they're responsible for your pain. But they're not. They're just holding up a mirror. The world is not punishing you. It's showing you what's inside you. Projection isn't always dark. You also project your light, your brilliance, beauty, and potential onto others. That's why you idealize new lovers. Why you idolize celebrities. Why you believe someone else can save you. You're not seeing them. You're seeing the unlived you. What you admire in others often reflects what you haven't owned in yourself. Your nervous system doesn't seek truth. It seeks familiarity. If chaos meant love in childhood, you'll mistrust peace as an adult. If you were only seen when you performed, you'll equate stillness with invisibility. You aren't seeing reality. You're seeing through the lens of what hurt you and what shaped you. The most powerful projections don't come from your mind. They come from your inner child, who felt abandoned, so now fears every goodbye, who felt unseen, so now demands validation, who felt unsafe, so now expect betrayal. This child doesn't need to be silenced. They need to be heard. Because every time you overreact to someone, you're not just responding to them. You're responding to a memory. Jung said that all relationships begin in projection. You don't fall in love with the person. You fall in love with the image you projected onto them. That image carries your unlived longings, your unmet needs, your unconscious hopes. And eventually it breaks, not because they changed, but because your projection faded. This is where real love begins. Not an illusion, but in truth. Projection loves certainty. She's toxic. He's arrogant. They don't care. But certainty is often a defense, a shield, a way to avoid the discomfort of asking, what part of me is being mirrored right now? The moment you ask that, you disrupt the spell. When you realize perception is a mirror, life becomes your teacher. The people who trigger you reveal your wounds. The people who inspire you reveal your potential. The people who bore you reveal your disowned desires. You stop seeing enemies. You start seeing reflections. And each reflection becomes an invitation inward. You will always project. It's part of being human. The goal is not to stop. The goal is to see it. Because the moment you see the projection, you regain your power. You become less reactive, more compassionate, more awake. You stop blaming. You start integrating. And reality stops being a battlefield and becomes a mirror. There's a moment in every awakening when illusion collapses, when the projection fades, when the mask falls, and you're left face to face with something terrifying. Yourself. Not the version you've shown the world, but the parts you've ignored, avoided, denied. This is the moment consciousness begins. Not intelligence. Not positivity. Not performance. Awareness. Silent. Raw. Disruptive. And utterly life-changing. Most people don't live. They repeat. They react. They defend. They perform. And they call it personality. They're not broken. They're unconscious, acting out childhood wounds, avoiding pain with distraction, confusing trauma patterns for destiny. Carl Jung said, people would do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. That avoidance is a spell. The belief that your triggers are about them, that your limits are reality, that your roles are truth, but they're not. They're protective illusions, and consciousness breaks the illusion. The moment you see the pattern, really see it, everything shifts. You recognize the inner critic. Instead of believing it, you feel a trigger, but pause before reacting. You notice the urge to please and choose truth instead. You stop living on autopilot. That's the gift of awareness. Choice. But don't expect your ego to surrender quietly. It will resist, rationalize, justify, blame. It will say, this is just who I am. Nothing ever changes. Other people are the problem, because the ego's job is to protect, even if what it's protecting is your pain. But awareness doesn't destroy the ego. It places it in its proper role, as servant, not master. What lives in shadow controls you. What is brought to light empowers you. You don't need to fight your wounds. You need to witness them. When you do, they transform. Guilt becomes responsibility. Fear becomes information. Anger becomes boundary. Grief becomes wisdom. You become less reactive and more real. Unconsciousness reacts. Consciousness responds. Reaction is fast, defensive, habitual. Response is spacious, grounded, intentional. You feel hurt, but instead of lashing out, you get curious. You feel fear, but instead of shutting down, you breathe. You feel old shame, but instead of spiraling, you sit with it. That's the difference between suffering and sovereignty. Trauma isn't just in your mind. It's in your nervous system, the tension in your shoulders, the tightness in your chest, the freeze when someone raises their voice. But presence is medicine. Each breath you take with awareness is a message to your body. You're safe now. You're here now. You get to choose now. And with enough safety, even your deepest patterns begin to unwind. When you name a pattern, it loses its grip. You say, that's my people-pleasing. That's my abandonment wound. That's not truth, that's projection. You become the witness, the observer, the one who sees, and the one who sees is free. You will still feel, you will still fall, you will still forget. But now you know, you catch yourself quicker, you return to truth faster, you navigate with awareness, and that is power, not perfection. Presence. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming whole, not who the world told you to be, not who your ego tried to protect, but who you always were. Underneath, individuation is an achievement. It's a remembering. It's coming home to yourself. When you live in awareness, you break cycles. You end generational patterns. You embody a new possibility for everyone around you. You stop being controlled by your programming, and you start choosing your path from presence. And that is freedom. What if your greatest purpose wasn't to succeed, to impress, or even to be good? What if your highest calling was simply to become whole? This is the essence of Carl Jung's life work. Not self-improvement, not perfection, but individuation. The sacred, lifelong journey of integrating every part of you, the conscious and the unconscious, the light and the shadow, the persona and the self. Individuation is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to someone ancient. You. In Jungian psychology, the self is not your ego. It's the totality of who you are. It includes your instincts, your fears, your hopes, your darkness, your divine spark. The self is the axis of your psyche, the silent, guiding center. And most people never meet it because they're too busy being what the world told them to be. Individuation is the process of shedding that programming, layer by layer, until the real you is revealed. We are taught to strive for perfection. Be good, be liked, be strong, be polished. But wholeness is different. Wholeness says, be true, be honest, be messy, be real. To individuate is to stop amputating parts of yourself to be accepted, to stop dimming your truth to fit into broken systems, to reclaim the parts of you that were exiled and bring them home. The persona is the mask you wear to survive, the role you perform, the identity you protect. But individuation requires that you question that mask. Are you the caretaker because you fear being abandoned? Are you the achiever because you never felt enough? Are you the strong one because no one was ever strong for you? These identities are not you. They're adaptations. The real you is underneath, waiting to be remembered. Healing is not becoming positive. It's becoming whole. That means feeling anger without guilt, feeling grief without judgment, feeling desire without shame. You stop labeling your emotions as good or bad. You start listening to them as messengers. Everything you feel belongs. And when you allow it, you return to integrity. You cannot individuate without the shadow. The parts of you that are impulsive, jealous, afraid, selfish, they are not your enemies. They are signals. They are energy. They are raw material for transformation. To reject your shadow is to reject your humanity. To integrate it is to become powerful without being dangerous. You no longer need to act it out or project it onto others. You can own it. I can be angry and still be kind. I can be afraid and still move forward. I can be flawed and still be whole. The self speaks in symbols. It speaks in dreams, in images, in intuition, in synchronicity. A recurring dream that feels ancient. A symbol that keeps appearing. A moment that feels faded. These are not coincidences. They are communication. Individuation means paying attention to this deeper voice. The voice that's been whispering beneath the ego's noise your entire life. Individuation is a kind of death. The death of the false self. The death of illusions. The death of who you thought you had to be. It's painful. It's disorienting. But it's necessary. Because only through that death can the real self rise. Not from effort, but from emergence. You will still feel fear. You will still feel grief. You will still stumble. But you won't be lost anymore. Because you'll be anchored. Anchored not in who others want you to be, but in who you are beneath all of it. This is real freedom. Not external, but internal. An individuated person doesn't have to convince, control, or convert. They radiate. Their presence is a mirror, reflecting to others what's possible when you stop performing and start becoming. You become the permission others have been waiting for, not because you're perfect, but because you're real. There is no finish line, no arrival, only deeper integration, wider acceptance, fuller embodiment. You are a living story, and individuation is the process of writing it. Consciously, you move from reaction to response, from trauma to truth, from fear to freedom, not to escape who you are, but to reclaim every part of you. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who you were told to be, not who you became to survive, but who you were all along, beneath the mask, beyond the shadow, before the programming. Whole, wild, awake, free." If this stirred something in you, don't scroll past it. Don't shrink back into the comfort of forgetting. Sit with it. Wrestle with it. Let it shape how you see yourself. Because that discomfort you feel, that spark in your chest, that's not fear. That's awakening. You were meant to go through life asleep. You were meant to go deep, to break the spell, to become conscious. So if this journey spoke to your soul, share it. Let it be a mirror for someone else. Let it ripple through another mind that's ready to wake up. And if you're ready to keep going, to keep facing the truth, to keep peeling back the layers, to keep becoming who you truly are, subscribe to Carl Jung Depths. Because this isn't just a channel. It's a mirror, and you've only just begun to see what's waiting on the other side.